The first round of the 2025 NBA playoffs were special. From the Luka trade failing the Lakers to Pistons basketball being back, brooms getting brought out, and MVPs about to face off. There is a lot to unpack in the first round for the 2025 playoffs. New York Knicks, Detroit Pistons. Let me say, this series did not disappoint. On April 19, 2025, the Pistons played their first playoff game since 2019. The last time Detroit had even won a playoff game? May 30th, 2008. 6,168 days since Detroit basketball was relevant in the playoffs. In Game 1, Detroit was on fire and leading through 3 quarters. Then Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks overcame a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter to deflate the Pistons 123-112. Brunson had 34 and 8, while Cat dropped a 23 and 11 double-double. Despite Cade Cunningham's 21 points and 12 assists in his playoff debut, the Pistons just stumbled and dropped the game. In Game 2 in Madison Square Garden, the Motortown boys made sure they got back in the series by winning Game 2 100-94 in a back-and-forth classic old-school fashion. This officially ended Detroit's NBA record 15-game postseason losing streak. Cade led the team with 33 and 12, while Dennis Schroeder contributed 20 points off the bench, including a crucial three-pointer with 55 seconds remaining to break a late tie. Despite Jalen Brunson's 37-point showcase for New York, Detroit's dominance on the boards and timely plays allowed them to even the series at 1-1. A few days later, the first playoff game ever was held in Little Caesars Arena in downtown Detroit for Game 3, where Karl Anthony Towns went into beast mode with 31 points and 8 boards. Brunson came up clutch as usual to put away a tight and literally hard-fought win. I'm talking 90s type of basketball. In Game 4, Cat was again an absolute beast, especially in the fourth when the Knicks needed everything he had. He delivered 27 and 9, and Brunson was even better with 32, 11, and 5. That Game 4 was a nail-biter all the way. The Knicks took a large 16-point lead in the first half, but Detroit, along with their fans, slowly walked them down and caught up in the third. The Pistons even had an 11-point lead in the fourth from a Beasley 3 with 8:35 to go, but Cat, Bridges, and Brunson fought tooth and nail to come back. At the end, there was the most controversial, if you even want to call it that, no call that could have won Detroit the game. But shoulda, woulda, coulda, couldn't help as a flaming hot JB attested.
He thought there should have been a foul called on the Hardaway shot.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Even the NBA said they got it wrong. And then Detroit did the unthinkable in Game 5. They went into Madison Square Garden, got into a dogfight with the Knicks, and came out on top. Tobias Harris and Cunningham led them with 22 from Harris and a 24-8-8 game from Cade. The Knicks, despite OG Anunoby's 19 points and Cat's 17, couldn't capitalize on their home court advantage, marking their 5th consecutive loss in series-clinching opportunities at home. Game 6 then saw the Knicks steamrolling the Pistons early on, but Malik Beasley with 6 threes kept the Pistons in it up to the half. New York had a 10-point lead for most of the second half, but an 11-0 run by the Pistons in the fourth tied the game. They eventually went up by 7 with around 2.5 minutes left in the game, but the Knicks chipped away, Bridges tip-in tied it at 113, and Brunson made the biggest 3 of his life with 4.3 left on the clock.
Brunson takes a peek at the clock. Thompson
Boston digging in defensively. 8 seconds. Brunson stops on a dime. Launches. Oh, yeah! Jalen Brunson buries it. The Knicks take care of business and move on to the second round.
The next matchup in the East saw the 4-seed Pacers and the 5th-seed Bucks hammering it out. And it wasn't too much of a series, this one. The Pacers proved to be way too much for the Bucks in the first 2 games. They were on their way to routing the Bucks again in Game 3 in the first half, but then desperation set in for Milwaukee when the others realized that it's surely hopeless if they lost 3 in a row. They rallied behind Giannis and steamrolled the Pacers in the second half. Gary Trent Jr. came up huge in the game of his life with 37 points. Dame so sadly got injured again in Game 4, and the Bucks' season was undoubtedly finished at that point. Any hope they thought they had of coming back was extinguished right as Dame fell with 6 minutes left in the first quarter. The Pacers blew them out, as expected, and now the closeout, Game 5, was a tough one for the Bucks. They balled out behind Giannis and Gary Trent Jr. to force overtime, but everything went to the garbage with less than 40 seconds left to play. The Bucks, up by 7, gave up an open 3 to Nembhard, who cut the lead to 4. The next possession saw Gary Trent turn over the ball and Halliburton converting to an and 1 with 17 seconds left, cutting the Bucks' lead to 1 point. Another turnover from Gary Trent right after was also turned into a game-clinching layup by Halliburton, sending the Bucks to Cancun. Not so exciting. Speaking of nothing exciting, is Cleveland stomping out the Miami Heat in a clean sweep. Miami just couldn't find enough firepower to keep up with the Cavs in the first 2 games. And Game 3 was even worse, arguably the worst loss in the playoffs this season. It wasn't even the fact that the Heat lost by 37, but it was how they lost. It was like a training session or pickup game for the Cavs. They got everything they wanted, and the entire Heat squad was out there sitting like cones. At this point, Heat culture needs to stop forcing this clearly outmatched group into the playoffs, spend some money on some real talent, or go to the lottery and enter rebuild mode. Game 4 was, well, it was. It came and went. That game was over from mid-second quarter. Down 55 at home in the second quarter. The 4th largest playoff win in NBA history. Them Cav boys were just getting stats in the first round. The final series out east was the world champion Boston Celtics matching up with a young Orlando squad. As we all know, Boston has too many guns. The Magic couldn't even win Game 2 without Tatum playing. They did manage to grab Game 3 by a monster first and third quarter. Boston kinda caught up, but Orlando held them off in the 4th for a close win. These games have me believing that Banchero and Wagner are gonna be a problem very soon. There hasn't been a team with 2 stars at that size leading a group in a long while. Game 4 did start a bit stagnant as both teams struggled to make shots. Boston was missing great looks, but they were playing good enough defense to keep it close. Not the same story in the second half. Towards the end of the third quarter, the floodgates opened and the Seas hammered the Magic into oblivion with a flurry of shots from JT. That carried over into the start of the 4th when Pritchard basically called game with back-to-back threes to put Boston up by 23. Boston closed out the series in the Garden in Game 5. Orlando took a 1-point lead into the half, but came out of the third down by 21. Game over, season over. Back to Galveston. Now, let's switch coasts and review what happened out in the wild, wild West. The third-seeded Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves Lakers had very little answers for the sixth-seeded T-Wolves. The Timberwolves opened the series with a 117-95 victory, led by Jaden McDaniels' 25 points and Naz Reid's 23 off the bench. Despite Luka dropping 37 in his Lakers playoff debut, LA was abysmal, shooting 33 of 83 from the field. The Lakers responded in Game 2 with a 94-85 dogfight win as Doncic recorded 31, 12, and 9, while LeBron added 21 points and 11 boards. The Timberwolves' shooting woes continued in that game, and they hit only 20% from three. Quickly, this became the most exciting series in the postseason, so we thought. Because Minnesota won Game 3 with a 116-104 win, fueled by McDaniels' 30 points and Ant's 29. Back-and-forth series is what everyone is thinking at this point, expecting LA to storm back. And they did in Game 4. Luka dropped 38, LeBron had 27 and 12, and through three quarters, it was rough on both sides. But Ant-Man arrived in the fourth and delivered a stellar 40-piece. Jaden McDaniels again contributed 16 crucial points and 11 big rebounds, not to mention that pivotal three-point play and a crucial steal in the closing moments. Talk about Naz Reid, though. The man didn't miss a three in any of the fourth quarters up to this point, going 6 of 6 from the three. AR-15, who was having a less than ideal series up to that point, almost hit that three at the end, but overall, it was JJ Redick who failed the team in this one. He decided from halftime that he wasn't going to sub anyone in the entire second half, including the 40-year-old LeBron. Finally, the Wolves started Game 5 very strong. They went up by 10 in the third quarter, but the Lakers did come storming back on the back of Luka and the amazing shooting of Rui. Luka's back was damaged by a foul from DiVincenzo, but he came back with a pep in his step and was super aggressive in the third. The T-Wolves then finally started using Gobert as they should, and he absolutely dominated, literally smashing the Lakers inside. Ant didn't deliver this game, but Rudy and Randall took up the baton and powered the Wolves to the finish line. Werewolves, Grey Wolves, T-Wolves, Lakers lost in 5. The Golden State Warriors versus Houston Rockets was the next series in the West, and this whole series was a battle. Steph and the boys surprised me by grabbing Game 1 from the young Rockets in Houston. The Rockets' D was honing in on shutting and locking down Steph, and it worked. Only until it didn't. The man had the defense draped all over him the entire game, but the chef still ended up with 31 points. Playoff Jimmy was out for most of the game after he fell and got injured in the first quarter, and that's not good for Dub Nation. But Houston's offense struggled to mainstream consistency, particularly in the second half. Then came Game 2, and the Rockets said, "Let me show you what two bigs can really do." In the first half, Şengün and Adams dominated, and the Rockets held on in the second half to win Game 2. The poor shot selection by the Rockets carried over and was severely punished by the Warriors in Game 3. Fred shot terribly, and GP2 played a fiery game with 11 points in the fourth. Houston lost Game 3. Game 4 wasn't much different. Jalen Green struggled again. The Rockets dominated in the paint when they decided to go down there, that is. But Steve Kerr and the Warriors were just too smart. Jimmy Buckets was back and did playoff Jimmy things, making almost no mistakes and scoring 14 in the fourth. Curry was a bit passive, but Brandon Pajemski had the game of his career with 26 points to see the Warriors go up 3-1 on the Rockets. Desperation time in Houston. They jumped on the Warriors and found themselves leading by as much as 30 early in the second quarter. They went into the third quarter with a 37-point lead, and the game was basically over at that point. Now, Game 6. The Rockets' double bigs really punished the Warriors, even though they tried to keep it close. The Rockets took a 2-point lead into the fourth, but quickly expanded it to 17. And it was really over from there. Van Fleet hit big three after big three, and Steven Adams' rebounding and rim protection showed why he's worth his weight in gold. Game 7 was a disastrous effort from the Rockets. They started the game lost and ended it just as lost. The Warriors showed how to use experience and common sense to win a game over superior athleticism. The Warriors used a zone to combat the Rockets' size, and Buddy freaking Hield came up huge for them, hitting 3 after 3 after 3 on his way to 22 in the first half, ending the game with 33 points. Warriors still alive. The most lopsided series out west was against the 1-seeded Thunder and the 8th-seeded Grizzlies. The Grizzlies' sense of entitlement that no one can understand has caused embarrassment in the first 2 games. Lost Game 1 by 50 points. And Game 2 was just over as it begun. The Grizz did show some pride at the start of Game 3. They put up 40 in the first quarter and had a 29-point lead in the first half. Scottie Pippen Jr., of all people, was shooting that thing and balling, but they couldn't sustain it. The Thunder outscored Memphis 36-18 in the third quarter and 27-13 in the fourth. MVP SGA had them boys like dogs out there. Ja got injured, but I really can't blame the injury to him for this one. Deeper blame goes to the front office for that ridiculous late coaching change and the demand of a change in style of play. Their Game 4 showing was a little bit improved, but still wasn't enough. The Thunder grabbed the lead going into the second quarter and didn't look back. Even though the Grizz kept it close throughout, SGA's threes with 3:38 left in the fourth really ended the Grizzlies' woeful season. Now the final matchup from the West, Clippers-Nuggets. A series of beauty. The Claw, the Beard, and their Clippers went into Denver and almost grabbed 2 games. But good old Russ delivered a fiery victory to the Nuggets in overtime in Game 1. The Clips then came back strong in Game 2 with Cyborg Kawhi dropping 39 points on super efficient shooting. James Harden had 24 and 8, and in another nail-biter.
Now he fires, missed it badly. Jokic with the rebound. Clock ticks to 2. Jokic, no, and that is it. And the LA Clippers hang on in a thriller.
A couple days later, at the first ever playoff game at the Intuit Dome in LA, the Clippers unleashed a decisive 23-2 run over the first and second quarters, establishing a good lead that they maintained throughout the game. Kawhi had 21, 11, and 6, while Norman Powell came up big, adding 20 points on 7 of 12 shooting. Jokic recorded a triple-double with 23, 13, and 13, but Denver struggled to contain the Clippers' offense. Game 4 was a strategic brawl. The Joker was just determined not to lose, and the Nuggets were on fire for most of the way. Jokic dropped 36 points, 21 boards, and 8 assists, while MPJ and Christian Braun each contributed 17. Despite the Nuggets building a 22-point lead early in the fourth quarter, the Clippers mounted a massive comeback, highlighted by a 32-9 run that briefly gave them the lead. Zubac's tip-in tied the game with 8 seconds remaining, setting the stage for one of the most dramatic buzzer-beating game winners of all time.
Zubac is on him. And this is for the win.
Oh! It's close. They're going to call it.
Did he beat the buzzer? Did Gordon beat the buzzer?
They're going to take a look at it. I don't know. It's so close.
The LED light. This is a successful basket, and the game is over.
The Nuggets have won!
At the start of Game 5, the Nuggets jumped on the Clippers in the first quarter and went up by 10. The Clippers were okay offensively throughout the second quarter, but they struggled to contain Denver, who maintained their 10-point lead in the second. Jamal Murray got hot in the second and continued over to the third, hitting 2 quick threes to start the third quarter. The Clippers soon found themselves down 17 with absolutely no let-up from the Nuggets. It was just 3 after 3, bucket after bucket. The Clippers managed to cut it to 9 in the fourth, but Jamal Murray said, "Not again. Hold this 40-piece and an L." The Clippers bounced back really well in Game 6 and forced a Game 7 by convincingly defeating the Nuggets behind 20-plus point performances from Kawhi, Harden, and Norman Powell. Then, Game 7. It started as a tight one, with the Clippers taking a small lead into the second, but the Nuggets quickly extinguished that and never looked back. Denver showcased a balanced offensive attack, becoming the first team in Game 7 history to have 6 players score at least 15 points. On the other side, LA struggled offensively, Kawhi looked fatigued, and let's just say Game 7 James Harden showed up, scoring only 7 points on 2 of 8 shooting. The guys sent the proper teams fishing as Giannis, LeBron, Kawhi, Harden, and the rest all headed off to Cancun for the summer. There were some gentlemen sweeps, but the first round of the 2025 playoffs gave us some great basketball. Stay tuned for the conference semifinals breakdown.